So, this is March the 14th, which is the day after the First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, announced that she was going to offer to the people of Scotland another referendum. I'm going to try and explain it as best I can, and I've got my props with me. This is England and Wales and Northern Ireland, because they tend to they're going to be lumped together in terms of this for various reasons. The whole Europe business, pardon me. This is Scotland. The bits in it I'll explain in a minute, but this is the currencies that they've got. This represents the European Union. It's got the euro on there because that's what they use for their currency, and it's got the European flag there. This is to represent small, impoverished England after Scotland departs from it. That's not A, what's likely to happen, and B, not the situation that's likely to occur. The first thing to notice is that physical size doesn't say that much about a country's strength in the world or with its neighbours. It tends to more go by population and economic power. So, although I've got this here to represent England diminished, it's not going to get a lot of use. Now, the game that's going to be played is, we can predict some things about it. What Nicola Sturgeon has said to Theresa May, who is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Nicola Sturgeon has said that obviously England is going to drag Scotland. This is how we are at the moment, England and Scotland together. And I'm knocking Wales in and Northern Ireland in with this, as I say, with England, because they're going to tend to be going in the same direction. This group here, the United Kingdom, is said to gonna leave Europe, and now they've got the power to do so. They're expected to do within the next week and a half or so. So this whole thing is currently in Europe, okay? But it's going to leave Europe, and what the Scots purport, what Ms. Sturgeon purports. And remember, when I say the Scots, I'm really saying Scottish, the people in Scotland, and quite a few of them aren't Scottish. And I don't mean, there's Pakistani people there, that's not what I'm talking about. There's reputed to be about 1 million English people in Scotland, earning a living there and living there, retired, whatever. So, really it's the people of Scotland we're talking about, though we'll shorthand it to Scots. So the whole thing, the United Kingdom, the whole effigy, is inside Europe at the moment. This is our Europe container with the euro on it. The First Minister for Scotland is saying that they are going to be dragged kicking and screaming out of Europe against their will, and that's not fair. And she's using that as a bit of leverage to say, I need to give the Scots another referendum, which we've only just had a couple of years ago already, a referendum, a vote on whether to stay in or out of the UK. It was decided to stay in. Okay, so the impression has been given by Ms. Sturgeon that Scotland will be dragged kicking and screaming out of Europe now that England, the UK government, has pretty much decided that is going to happen, and the Lords have backed down from their amendments. In other words, the Lords are no longer going to block the bill, and it has now last night been voted through, Monday the 13th of March 2017. So the UK Parliament have got the full power now to jump out of Europe. Press Article 50 and jump out of Europe. Article 50, for those that don't know, basically is the letter of resignation from Europe that has been pre-written by our bosses in Europe. That's not a good thing to have. But Article 50 basically hands the power to Europe as soon as it happens. That noise you have to forgive, that is the local police helicopter. See, this is dangerous, they want to know what I'm up to. Should I draw the curtains? Too late. Right, so Theresa May has got the power to take us out of Europe. Nicola Sturgeon says that the people of Scotland deserve a say in that. They shouldn't be dragged kicking and screaming. However, plenty of SNP voters, maybe a third, don't actually want to stay in Europe that much. They're not that keen in following the European path because of something called the euro for a start, but anything else that they have that they object to. So Sturgeon is making out that what she wants is that England and Wales and Northern Ireland are dragged out by the UK government, but they stay in. And of course, to do that, as my little models show, they have to be separated. I'll keep that out of the way just now. They have to be separated. So Ms Sturgeon is pointing out that this is what she thinks the situation should be. And in order to get that situation, she's saying, we are not going to come out with you. So at the point where you think you're going to go out, we would like to please jump out of you and thereby fall into Europe. She thinks that there'll be a more clear road to jumping into Europe. This is rather a false, it's a straw man, this. It's not really true, I don't think, that Nicola Sturgeon particularly cares about the Europe thing, but it is a great booster rocket that can be dropped later to say, well, we can't be dragged out kicking and screaming, so we should have a devolution vote, and we have to have it before we go out of Europe. This gives a time limit. It's a bit of a, I don't wish to be rotten to Nicola Sturgeon, but it's a bit of a booster rocket approach. They don't care whether the booster rocket falls away later. They don't care whether, in fact, later on they would have a vote about going into Europe, or they'd be in Europe, sort of in Europe, and then a lot of the Scots say, oh, we don't want to stay in Europe, actually. She doesn't care about that. It's not that big a deal, but it's the booster rocket by which she beats Theresa May into saying she'll permit another referendum on Scotland being a membership of being in membership of the UK. So people are saying the worst thing could happen, which is that Scotland gets dragged out of Europe, or halfway dragged out. They get independence and then they're out on their own. And then you've got Scotland on its own. Now, Scotland has got a currency, which is its Scottish pound, but nobody is seriously suggesting, not even the nationalists, that the Scots would be left with their Scottish pound. The Irish punt dropped like a stone when that was left to float. The Scottish pound would drop like a stone probably. All we've got is oil. All that the people in Scotland have got is oil, plus some manufacturing and whatever other knowledge economy jobs they've got. There are other things that are there, but oil's a single big component. And the disturbing fact is that when I was in favour of devolution, independence rather, a couple of years back at the last referendum, oil suddenly took a dump about 7 weeks after the referendum had happened. Now that is such a weird coincidence. It's hard to believe it's coincidence. So whoever pulled the strings on that, it's like it was in process and then it just came through the system 7 weeks later. In other words, that would have been hell on earth for the Scots, because oil currently is about £50 a barrel. It was at a high. So that would be quite disturbing for the Scots if that had happened. In fact, it's lucky for the SNP they failed to get the vote that they wanted. I'm wondering whether Scotland would give them the second time round the vote that they want, and then some similar bad thing will happen, and they won't be so lucky because they'll have got the vote in their favour. So that's a worry, because SNP obviously appear to have no control over that. Okay, so I think it's just a booster rocket saying that they want to be in Europe. I don't think it matters that much, the SNP, whether Scotland's in Europe. They are the Scottish Nationalist Party, whether Scotland's in Europe or it's out. Now, Nigel Farage ran the UK Independence Party, and a lot of people say that it struggles now to get votes because its raison d'etre, which is getting out of Europe. has in effect all but been done, bar the paperwork and the shouting. It's been done. And indeed UKIP is having trouble getting votes now. So, what is likely to happen? There are various scenarios, but I'm saying, first of all, realise that the Scottish pound, forget it. Without the English pound to back it up, it's pretty dead. I believe that what will happen is this. This is the scenario where Scotland votes no for a second time. So we have England and the UK government busy, locked in discussions, or about to be, once they trigger Article 50, which they've said will be in the next couple of weeks. So let's say within the next couple of years, it pulls us out. Now, at that point, has Scotland voted to get out of the UK? Let's say that it doesn't. It comes out with England. Forget the euro, because it will never have the euro. They both have the pound. And that'll be the situation. That is the most likely scenario. Now, why is Nicola Sturgeon called this now? Well, it turns out there's a spring conference of the SNP on, and if anything was a minuscule reason to time it now, it would be timing the announcement so that you get a hero's welcome at the spring conference of the SNP. However, it can't be ruled out that that was a factor. Is anyone averse to hero worship? Right, so you're not immune to that sort of thing. How long does Nicola Sturgeon want to stay leader of the SNP and First Minister of Scotland? I put it to you, it's a pretty stressful job. And I would say about 2021 is as far as Nicola Sturgeon would like to go. So I say that this is her big punctuation mark, where she's going to retire from real frontline politics. As the First Minister, I think she's going to retire from that position pretty soon after this second independence referendum. So you start to see how people's personal career paths and stress in their lives is kind of tied up with the decisions that they make that are pretty big for their country. So in other words, she doesn't want to be waiting for 5 or 10 years till they have the second referendum. And she doesn't want to retire from First Minister's position without having had a go at it. Okay? Right. So let's say that's the simple situation. Let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say Nicola Sturgeon jumps the gun as she has, and she gets a vote to say that Scotland will be separate from England. So in Nicola Sturgeon's world, excuse me banging these, Nicola Sturgeon's world, that would happen. Stay in Europe, keep the British pound, and then, of course, England, the remaining UK, would vote to leave. And that is the view that Sturgeon is putting forward. The problem is that there are some big things that Europe will try to control. Europe is massive compared to Scotland. If I just mention one or two, fishing rights. Scotland has loads of fishing area, which it should have rights to, except because we're part of Europe, Scotland's fishing rights are pretty much null and void. Big Spanish vessels are coming along and they will steal all the fish. And fish move around, so eventually they'll steal them all. That's kind of that. You're stuck when you're in Europe. So my point is they're not going to do that. Now, let's say that the parting took place. She got her independence vote. Theresa May gets England, the remainder of the UK, out of Europe, Wales, Northern Ireland. And let's say, for whatever reason, Scotland's not allowed to stay in Europe but has to reapply. The pound then, it might well hang on to for a while, but there will be massive pressure to take on the euro. So let's say they do sort of get into the basket, having had to reapply. They're going to be forced to take the euro, or at least commit to take it at some point. They commit to take it at some point. So how long would they keep the pound? Well, for a while, but the remainder of the UK might say stop having our pound, although that would be against their interest, because the more people that have it, the better. But eventually the pound would go. So then you've got a little country called Scotland, with a load of oil, but not enough to make it filthy rich like the Saudis, and it's got the euro. That looks like Greece to me. That looks like Ireland to me. So my concern is, this glass of milk has nothing to do with it. My concern is that Scotland really would just end up like another little country that is ruled by the rooster of Germany. It used to be Franco-German. Now people say it's German-German because the two halves of Germany have come back together. So little Scotland would be left there, and oil is diminishing in value. A long time ago I got a job in Manchester, and when I was there I was talking to some of the English guys about this. It's Salford actually, sorry. And when I was there I was talking to some of the guys about this, some of the English guys, and they said, well, whose oil is it? And I said, well, if it was in the English Channel, whose oil would it be? And they didn't have an answer to that, because it's true, if it's in the English Channel, you don't think the English would say it's French oil. Hell no. It wouldn't matter if it's 3 miles off the coast of France. The English would say we get a right to some of that oil. So Scotland's oil is a bit of a problem. And what I said to the guys was, we'll get our independence when the oil runs out. Now it turns out, although there's been a few scares, the oil hasn't actually run out. But it is not as valuable as it was, patently, by being $50 a barrel, or £50 a barrel, or whatever. And electric vehicles, and electric power packs for houses, and electric this and electric that, and wind power, excuse me, and wave power even, although I think there's problems with wave power which people don't realise, but namely algae and stuff. You can't kill the foaming of the water and the water still do its job when it's not foaming, you see. There's actually an oxygenation takes place which allows fish to live in. Anyway, my point is there's problems with some of these schemes. But oil is diminishing in value. Arguably it's still valuable, you make plastics out of it, but patently in the short term at least it's got a wobbly value, oil. And how much of that would be Scotland's, and how much would Scotland have to pay the remainder of the UK to exit? What assets does Scotland have? Okay, the point is, nuclear subs are currently based in Scotland. Where would they go? Who wants a bunch of nuclear subs? You might be able to get it to go down the west coast to Whitehaven. They've already got a nuclear industry there, or down to Bristol where there's a Hinkley B or C reactor being built, so there's more nuclear stuff there already. I don't know. Would England pay Scotland to just leave the subs there? Would they be happy doing that? Would there be more protests once Scotland left? A whole ragtag bag of stuff comes out if Scotland leaves the United Kingdom. So my belief, what will happen, the probability is that Scotland keeps the pound, the euro never happens, they stay like this, and the UK pulls out, and then you've got Europe and the UK, Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland out of it. I don't think there's any other scenario that works. The mess that we've created, think of the mess that there is getting Great Britain, the UK out of Europe. All the talk they're talking about how awful it'll be and how difficult it'll be. You are going to multiply that by 2 if Scotland decides it's going to extricate itself from the UK. I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying that the practical problems and the risks are huge. And if the oil price can drop through the floor like happened last time after the vote, that suggests to me that obviously the SNP don't have any control over it. So you are voting on faith. Now it's fine to vote on faith and passion, but here's the problem, and this is the best analogy I've got. How many times do you hear kids say, you wait till I get my own house, mum and dad, you won't be able to tell me to do stuff, and I won't have to give my phone up at 9 PM and I'll be phoning people all night and I'll be out partying, okay? Those of us who have got our independence and got out of the family home, pretty quickly your dependence on your parents turns into your dependence on the bank and your dependence on your job. Now, how independent do you feel when you're getting up at 6:30 in the morning to do your hour-and-a-half commute on some crap motorway and spend 9 hours at work, then your hour-and-a-half commute on the way back, then your boss wants you in on Saturday, then you do extra work through the evening? How much are you going to feel like partying and so on when you've got to do that to pay the mortgage that you're in hock for every month for your independence? You're never poorer than when you set out from your parents' home to set up your own home. That is a fact. Parents can bail you out. You can give you advance inheritance and all that stuff. Cool, it's nice if you get it. But the reality is not everybody gets that. So, this is my warning and my warning analogy to the people of Scotland, the people who are in Scotland of any faith, religion, skin colour. Your dependence on the UK, your independence from them, comes at a monumental price. The practicalities are, you got to work harder. You're £1,000 per head up at the moment spending on the tax take from the UK Parliament. You're getting £1,000 more a head than we are here in the north of England. Maybe 1,500 more a head than we are in the north of England. So you might not think that sounds like a lot of money, anybody out there? Let me tell you, it's a hell of a lot of money. If you get 50,000 people, that would be 100 million quid. £1,000 a head. So I don't know. You're talking. It's a lot of money. That would be 1,050. That's 50 million quid. Sorry. It's a lot of money. So how England's going to make up, Scotland, sorry, is going to make up that shortfall, I've got no idea. And England might send you a bill. The UK is going to be sent a bill allegedly by Europe. You know, so there you go. There's your bill, 50 billion quid. And then also Scotland, sorry, might get a bill from England. There you go. We'll have 5 billion quid or 10 billion quid. My point is, the practical problems are huge. You'll be working harder and you'll be working for longer, and your free prescriptions will go, your free university places will go. How they can possibly keep all that going when your economy is going to shrink and your tax payment per head is going to shrink, I don't know. In passion terms, in terms of my heart, yeah, it'd be great to have an independent Scotland, but the time to have got it would have been when Thatcher or Heath or whoever prevented it back in the 70s, because you would have built up that sovereign wealth fund everyone talks about, like what Norway has. To get it now, I said Scotland would get its independence when the oil ran out. Actually, as good as that is getting your independence when the value of the oil drops through the floor and electric, this, that, the other vehicles are coming through, and so on and so forth. And if you think England wants somebody to turn up some oil somewhere else, you're kidding yourself. I've got a feeling it's gonna. So, I don't know. It is fraught with difficulty, and I can't say not to do it. But I think, to me, it's all about passion and heat, wanting to be independent as Scotland. It's certainly not about practicalities. Remember the analogy with your parents, leaving your parents' household. I want to be independent, stay up all night, party, use my phone all night. Just all the fun just disappears when you're in hock to the bank and you're working all week to pay for it. That's the best analogy I can give you. A lot of dreams just get blown apart when you meet the bills at the end of the month. Thanks for watching and listening.